In this video, I will explain a logical fallacy called the circular argument, which is also known as begging the question. I'll begin with a general explanation and follow with some real examples. To explain this fallacy, I'll be using terms such as premise, conclusion, and syllogism. If these are unfamiliar to you, watch my video in the link above. So what is a circular argument? A circular argument occurs when the argument's conclusion repeats a premise. This is a problem because no satisfactory explanation is provided for this conclusion. Simply asserting a premise does not count as a conclusion. The simple and obvious example is X is true. This is a premise that states that X is true. Therefore, X is true. This is a conclusion that simply repeats the premise. Obviously, this argument tells us nothing about X. It just repeats the premise. It is circular. Another obvious example is I believe X because A. I believe A because X. The circularity here is clear. The argument tells us nothing about the truth value of A or X. Interestingly, it is not clear which is the premise and which is the conclusion, a sign of its circularity. But not all circular arguments are this obvious. Most circular arguments are harder to spot. They will likely involve more than one premise. For example, you may have 5 premises and one conclusion. But the conclusion is a simple rewording of premise 3, a circular argument. The conclusion is the same as one of the premises, so no satisfactory explanation is provided for this conclusion. The burden of proof is with the person making the claim. A circular argument is just one way that is used to escape having to prove a claim. The final point to make here is that exposing a circular argument does not mean you can prove the truth value of its conclusion. If the circular argument attempted to prove X is true, then exposing the argument as fallacious does not mean that X is false. We do not know the truth value of X. To do so, we need to find a better, non-fallacious argument. Let's look at some examples of circular arguments. The classic example concerns the existence of God. They might say, God exists because this book says so, and that we should believe this book because God says so. Again, the circularity here is clear. The argument tells us nothing about the existence of God or the validity of the book. If we are interested in the existence of God, then we should find better non-fallacious arguments. The circular argument is just no good. The next example does not concern a particular person, organization, or government, but I'm sure you've seen examples of it. Consider the belief that the spokesperson never lies. Why should we believe this? Because the spokesperson said they never lie. Another circular argument. To accept the reason given, we have to assume that the person never lies, which is the very thing they are trying to prove. The next example is slightly harder. It concerns the following syllogism on glasses. If I wear reading glasses, then I must be long-sighted. I can see things at a distance without glasses. Therefore, I must be long-sighted. This is a circular argument. The second premise and the conclusion both say the same thing. It is fallacious to make this conclusion. The interesting thing with this example is that if we change the second premise to I use reading glasses, we end up with modus ponens, a valid form of logic. That concludes the video. Hopefully now you are better placed to spot circular arguments. If you see someone making this mistake, politely point out why it is fallacious. Help them to come up with a better, non-fallacious argument.